Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Executive Committee of the Northwest Indiana Regional Plan Commission. I'm asking you to stand, please. I've asked Commissioner Ensign of Hebron if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. You may be seated. The chair is reliably advised that we have a quorum to do business. We have all members of the Executive Committee here, and we're grateful for that. I'm glad to have them here. We still like to do this, and because we do have some new members here today, it's customary for us to go around the table and just have everybody sort of say hello, introduce themselves, and tell from where they hail. I will begin. I am Michael Griffin. I am the clerk treasurer for the town of Highland, and I'm serving this year as chair of this body. Mr. Hollenbeck?
I'm Dave Hollenbeck, and it's my pleasure to serve as your attorney.
Ed Soliday, District 4 State Representative, Governor's appointee to NERC.
Greg Stinson, Councilman, Town of Fort. Tom McDermott, City Hall.
I'm Lauren, NERC staff.
Mark Krenz, Mayor of LaPorte. Tom Schmidt, Chair of Town Council.
Bob Carnahan, Cedar Lake Town Council, just celebrating our 50th anniversary as a town.
Nice.
Will Farbank, Lowell Town Council. Bill Emerson, Lake County Surveyor.
Gary Tanis, Dyer Town Council.
Dave Schaefer, Clerk Treasurer for the Town of Munster.
Don Ensign, Town of Hebron, Councilman.
Christine Sid, Lake County Council.
George Topol, Union Township Trustee in Porter County.
Justin Keel, Council President for Town Cross. Jim Town, Chesterton Town Council.
Diane Knoll, Clerk Treasurer for the Town of Watertown.
Jeff Benson, Beverly Shores Town Council.
Ty Warner, Executive Director for NERC.
Ms. Carey, we'd like to have you introduce yourself too, please. And we're going to go through the audience if you don't mind.
Doreen Carey with Indiana DNR Lake Michigan Coastal Program.
Kathy Luther, NERC staff.
David Rectory, Public Transportation.
Lindsay Quist, Indiana Department of Transportation.
Teresa Torres, Everybody Counts.
Don Oldenbach, Civil Work Engineering.
Andrew Steele, Times.
Celia Horado, Process for Change.
Tim Jordan, Village View.
Isabella LA Services. Randy Strasser, PS Engineering. James Winters, NERC staff. Scott Weber, NERC staff.
Jody Bell, Executive Director, Canby Clearwater Basin Commission, and NERC staff. Mitch Barlow, NERC staff.
Gary Evers, NERC staff.
The back row. The NERC staff's in the back row. I know when I was growing up, that's where I like to sit in church, and it wasn't always for the best of intentions. I hope you're otherwise. Yeah. Oh, hi. Kevin Breedsky, the County Surveyor of Porter County, a past chair of this board. He's here now.
And I'm out at the beach today.
Very good. We have before you, members of the Executive Board, the minutes of July 20th of this body. I hope you've had an opportunity to review them. The chair will entertain a motion regarding the disposition of them.
OG approval.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the meeting of July 20th, 2017. Are the movers wishing to speak in favor of their motion? Hearing none, does anybody wish to speak against? As many as in favor of the approval say yes. As many as opposed say no. The yeses have it. The motion passes. The minutes are approved. I'm going to defer to our attorney, David Hollenbeck, who wishes to make a report about the disposition of membership on the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to indicate to you that the mayor of LaPorte has appointed himself as the representative of LaPorte on the commission. And Mark, welcome. You've already introduced yourself, but his appointing letter is in appropriate form, and he is the duly appointed representative to NERC from the city of LaPorte.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
It's now in order for the chair's report. I will try to be brief. First, as you know, without objection from the full commission, I've gone ahead to appoint a task force on bylaws. Though every member of that group is here. Justin Keel, Dave Schaefer, George Topol, Will Fairberg, and myself are all here. I'm still doing the initial draft. We're going to probably have a circulation of the draft first by email. I'll need a little more time on that. I got kind of interfered with because it's a budget deadline coming up. And then I am going to make an assignment because I've got to get some additional material from here for it. And then I will give you more information on bringing that back to the full group. We'll have something, I hope, after we have a face-to-face meeting to circulate, and then we get the review of our attorney as well to make sure that both form and substance are not in conflict with our legal requirements. I want to remind everybody, if you did not get your PIN as a member, there is a membership PIN for being on the commission. Who doesn't know, I'm going to say this, please see the executive director for that. And if you're a past chair and you have not received your PIN, please see him for that. They're very handsome gold versions of the other PIN. They look quite nice. You see Dave Schaefer's featuring his, and Jeff Benson's featuring his. And I'm looking forward to that moment when I will feature mine. And last, that was really the conclusion of my report, unless there's questions for me. Thank you for not. Let us recognize then the Executive Director, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, if I may take that.
Please.
Good morning. First of all, before anything else, I just want to publicly thank NERC staff. We have, as you know, with retirements and other positions that we're hiring for, staff has had to do a double duty trying to make up for those things temporarily. And Kathy Luther in particular, who's our chief of staff now, has been just a phenomenal help in picking up that slack and trying to keep everything together. So before I say anything else, I just want to thank NERC staff for bearing with this time and for all the effort put into that. Just a quick note on something from the last time that we met, the Lakeshore South route. As you recall, we were pulling the communities together to have a meeting about addressing that funding situation. That scheduling is still trying to take place. I think the general thought was it was more important to get all the communities at the table than to meet with just whoever happened to come. So that unfortunately has meant a little bit longer time trying to get that together, but I think that should be scheduled in the near future. I had the fortune to be on a panel recently in Chicago that was on the Midwest Regional Mega Region that the Federal Highway Administration did, specifically on freight. And this involved multiple states from the Midwest region, FHWA division heads, FTA people, other MPOs, etc. And just so you know, we were well represented at that two-day event looking at the entire freight picture for the Midwest. And I think all recognize the importance that Northwest Indiana has to that. And the only quick note I will say of particular interest, I think, is one of the common themes on that panel was the difficulty in being in situations where there are important regional projects that require federal funding to be put into place, and the difficulty of some of those projects falling on state boundaries that make funding across state lines difficult to put those in place. That ended up being a big theme that I was able to hammer home given our situation with Chicago and Illinois. And so I was happy to see so much, and who knows what will happen eventually, but I was happy to see so much attention paid towards wanting to address that issue and allow more flexibility across state funding sources to do that, given metropolitan regions that do cross state lines, of which we are a prime example. So very happy to be at that event. I also just wanted to kind of put out there as a sort of a teaser, is there's a lot more discussions happening with the forum on how we can better partner with the Northwest Indiana Forum, on how we can better partner with brownfield development for economic development and trying to forge a stronger partnership between public and private sectors. We have some great things in place. The Calumet Collaborative, which is a new organization by state that's getting off the ground, has identified brownfields as a prime issue as well. And so there's a lot of discussion on multiple parties on how to kick up what we can do for brownfield redevelopment on a much stronger level. And so I'm excited about that future. I also wanted to make sure to welcome Mayor Krentz to the table. As you know, Mayor Milo was appointed Secretary of Career Connections and Talent for the state of Indiana and has started that position. And so we're thankful to have the Mayor of LaPorte here. Thank you so much for being at the NERC table. We'll get you some information so you don't feel quite as very good. Thank you, Mary, for pulling that together. And then lastly, on a very tangible note, you may have seen a lot of trees around. I think there's, right out this window, in fact, you'll see a lot of balls of trees, and there's a newly planted one right beside our building here. U.S. Forest Service has held a workshop here through this Community Trees program that we had sent out notices about. You're all nodding your heads, so you're familiar with it. So there was hand-on demonstrations that the U.S. Forest Service did right here to plant a tree and talk about tree planting. The staging location was NERC for these trees is, I don't know how many have come and gone, you can see them out there, but I think 335 trees are various stages of coming and going here on the NERC property. So great program, and obviously a lot of good feedback from that. So thanks for your communities for participating in the Community Trees program. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, the chairman recognizes
Can I ask a
Commissioner
question?
Sherman.
Sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of agencies like the Forum, NERC, and then lately One Region's been taking a more active role. I was wondering what's NERC's affiliation with One Region, if we recognize them as well or partner with them?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Yes, One Region has a different purpose, obviously, than what the Forum does and what NERC does. The main benefit that has happened with a recent shift in One Region's organization is that they have started to take on more of a role as being a hub, if you want to use that word, to interconnect the regional agencies in the area. One of the things that we had talked a lot about with One Region, with the change in leadership there, is the importance of not reinventing the wheel when we have some great regional agenda items that we've already come together to try to accomplish. And so in many cases, it's just making sure that everybody is connected in what we're doing. And at least from my perspective, that's been the main benefit of One Region thus far in their new interaction.
It seems to me like One Region and NERC are synonymous with each other, really, because it's more like a one-person operation with One Region, and NERC's got a whole group of people that are trained and qualified. It almost seems like maybe they should really partner up, and maybe One Region's even more effective if they have NERC's reach. I actually suggested that to the CEO of One Region. It seems to me. And I would wonder if other MPOs have, because that's what NERC is all about, right?
Right.
One region, and then you have this other organization that's a one-person operation trying to do the same thing. It's like, I almost wonder if we should be really like one of the same organizations, just like we have other parts of NERC.
Good comments. I mean, we obviously are trying to build this future of Northwest Indiana together, and I wouldn't necessarily make an argument. That's a great point of discussion. I wouldn't make an argument either way. I would just say One Region is a little bit different in being able to have those private sector dollars behind it as they do at the Times. But other than that, I think you're absolutely right. We need to be on the same page in our regional leadership and what we put forward for the future of Northwestern Indiana. And the last thing that I know and I think anybody else on this commission wants to do is to work at cross purposes with another regional entity.
I think it just confuses people, I appreciate it.
Another comment to that is that One Region will be having their annual luncheon on October the 5th at the Avalon Manor.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It is now the moment in the agenda for the Finance Personnel Committee report. In the absence of our treasurer, Madam Mayor Freeman Wilson, can I recognize Diane Knoll? Will you be prepared to make that report for us today?
I'm sorry,
Who is going to be reporting then?
Mr. Dave Schaefer.
David, are you going to report? The chair has no objection to who reports, he just hopes someone will.
All right. Madam Chairman. Yes, the Karen Freeman Wilson is in Washington, D.C. right now. We're trying to get there. So she wasn't able to chair the meeting this morning. I sit as vice chair of the committee. And I'm pleased to report that the NERC finances are solid. We have money in the bank. That's good news. We also gave serious consideration to a number of items that were presented for our consideration. And a number of them required it came as recommendations of the Finance and Personnel Committee to the Executive Board for approval. The first one starts on page 8. Please ignore that typo where it says page 7. Unless they just spelled 8 wrong, I don't know which. There is a budget amendment. I'll return to it so I know what I'm talking about. NERC is going to host the MPO conference this year, and we anticipate receiving some registration revenue from that conference that we would in turn spend on that conference. So this comes as a proposed budget amendment, number 5, and it's recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee for the positive action by the Executive Board.
I make a motion.
It's been moved by Commissioner Knoll to approve the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget amendment. Is there any discussion in favor from the proponents of the motion?
And seconded.
Second by non-executive.
Oh, that's right, I thank you, that wouldn't be in order. It's all right, I recognize it wasn't in order. There's a second from the executive committee, thank you. Now, the proponents of the motion, do they wish to speak in favor of it? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition? Hearing none, as many as in favor say aye. Aye. As many opposed say no. The ayes have it, the motion passes, the amendment is adopted. Next part of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are two procurement recommendations that are presented to the Executive Board for approval. The first is procurement number 17-14. It pertains to some hardware and software upgrades. And I would, let's see, what did I have in my... I didn't write myself any secret notes or anything about that.
The recommendation is on page 9 on the bottom.
Yes. And I might look to Kathy Luther to elaborate on the purpose of the hardware and software.
Procurement 1714 is for NERC computers and sound system and various electronic equipment. We have historically, and with this as well, funded these through the Federal Transit Administration grant in our capacity as transit direct oversight agency. The life cycle of computer equipment for any FTA is 3 years, so we typically are able to then replace our computers every 3 years. So this, the majority of the purchases under this line item are less than $25,000, but the actual hardware for the desktops and laptops, that order is $35,000, so we require board approval for that. And that is the first one. Are we going to do these all together?
What is the pleasure of the body? Is there any objection if we hear both of them and then the motion can entertain both? Hearing none, proceed to describe the second.
The second procurement is for the MPO conference. As you recall, we just did a budget amendment to allow for both the revenue and the expense for the MPO conference. So the procurement would allow an amount not to exceed $30,000 for various procurements for the conference. You'll note the budget amendment was for $27,000. The $30,000 allows us, if anything goes over, we have existing budget as appropriate for that.
And just for clarity, both the prior budget amendment and this before you, NERC is actually the host agency for this year's state MPO conference. So it became necessary for this. These will be supported in part by fees that are paid for the member agencies participating in the conference. Is that not correct?
Yes, both registration fees and we have a number of sponsors.
Excellent. Because my favorite term of art in your supplies is swag.
Ski offices.
Yes, I like that too. I thank you. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff with regard to the description of procurement? Then the Chair would be open to a motion to adopt both procurement recommendations 17-14 and 17-18.
So moved.
It's been moved and is it seconded? It's been moved and seconded by members of the Executive Committee. Are the proponents wishing to speak in favor of their motion? Does anybody wish to speak against? Hearing none, as many as in favor of the motion to adopt both procurement recommendations say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passed. The procurement recommendations are adopted and authorized.
Chairman, the final item begins on page 10 of your packet. Is to take action on a contract with Eco Interactive for Project Tracker software. It's to be used in transportation planning and tracking. And this is calling for an initial 3-year term with an option to have the contract in place for an additional 2 years, but at a higher rate. We start out at $45,000 per year for the first 3 years, and it kicks up to $46,000 something for years 4 and 5 if we decide to go that route. But essentially, it's software for transportation funding, transportation tracking. transportation funding tracking.
Are there questions about the request and the agreement? Is this a license, or is this actually an engagement to have them develop the software as well?
If I could, it's a subscription-based
Okay.
situation, so, and just to underscore, without belaboring the item, this basically makes our entire TIP extremely transparent, accessible by member agencies to be able to know exactly where the TIP is at. It's already used and has been greatly, strongly recommended by both the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, for which we share a metropolitan area, as well as Indianapolis. And Indianapolis, the MPO there, has worked with INDOT in being able to get state project data to interact with this particular software. So it's highly recommended from them. Indianapolis has already paved the way, so to speak, for working with INDOT on this. And it also, I think, will set us up very, very well for the transition from Gary Evers, who is in the back of the room, by the way, who very graciously stayed on 1 extra month. That's why you are seeing him still here. But for the transition there, this software will be very helpful to have everything put into this new system, and be much better for you to see exactly where the tip is at.
Thank you. The chair then will entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
Motion.
It's been moved to approve the agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by members of the executive committee to approve the agreement as recommended favorably from the Finance and Budget and Personnel Committee. Those who made the motion as proponents, do they wish to speak in favor of their motion? Hearing none, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the motion? Hearing none, as many as in favor, please vote aye. Aye. As many opposed, vote no. The ayes have it, the motion passes, the agreement is approved and adopted.
That concludes the report of the Finance and Personnel Committee.
And I thank you, my friend and Commissioner Mr. Schaefer. I appreciate the report. The next matter before us is the Environmental Management Policy Committee report. My friend, Vice Chairman and Commissioner Jeff Benson will report.
Thank you. The first thing is a presentation on Septic Smart Week, which we're in the middle of, September 18th through 22nd, and I asked Doreen Carey from the Coastal Program to speak with us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And, thank you again for the opportunity to present to you today in support of the resolution to proclaim Septic Smart 217. And that's on page 76 of your packet. So just a little background. The Coastal Program and our regional partners, including NERC, in the Northwest Indiana Septic System Coordination Work Group are distributing educational materials and requesting resolutions in support of Septic Week, September 18th through 22nd, 2017, throughout our region. Northwest Indiana has been participating in Septic Smart Week since 2014, and support has been growing every year. This year, through the efforts of regional partners and our new statewide partners, the Indiana On-Site Wastewater Professional Association, they're called IOPA, Governor Holcomb has, for the first time in Indiana, issued a proclamation supporting Septic Smart Week. So, in celebration of Septic Smart Week, we're providing you with a Septic Smart folder, and there are additional folders for those who may not have them yet. And it's got the governor's proclamation within it, and the materials that we distribute to communities and organizations. This is for your use or to gift to a friend that has a home or business septic system. So I'd just like to go through it very briefly. On the outside is a folder that people could put in their filing system if you still have hard copy files. For record keeping of your septic system and additional information and on your maintenance, which is suggested that you pump and inspect your system every 3 to 5 years. And inside, again, you'll find the governor's proclamation and the EPA Septic Smart notification. That's followed by the DNR, Lake Michigan Coastal Program press release, and with links to EPA Septic Smart website, the Coastal Program, and the IOPA, the Professional Association website, for certified inspectors and installers. We now have a state certification program for inspectors and installers, and these individuals should be utilized whenever possible because they meet all the state standards for being able to identify all of the elements of the system and its proper function. So, excuse me, in addition to the Septic Smart materials, you also find some information that was developed by our local partnership that speaks directly to Northwest Indiana residents and businesses. That's that postcard. You'll also see here a yard sign that has been developed for people to place in their yards for periods of time, usually about a week or so, and certainly during Septic Smart Week and Coastal Awareness Week. But we plan to work with communities and neighborhood organizations to set these signs out on occasion, just to show that you are a good neighbor and take care of your septic system, and to remind others to do the same. So these signs are also available to you, your communities. So just to let you know that, again, these materials are available through the Coastal program. We will deliver them to you to utilize in your community or your neighborhood organizations. And we continue to work year-round to promote septic system maintenance and inspection to protect public health and our water quality. So again, thank you on behalf of the Coastal program, the EMPC, for this opportunity to support the Septic Smart Week 217 resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. It would be in order at this time for consideration of Resolution 17-18. Even though this seems like it's not timely, it has to do with the timing of our meetings. It would still be in order for this to be taken up. And this isn't just a rural matter. In my community, which is suburbs, which is over 100 years old, even though we have roughly 9,800 metered customers for water and about 9,700 metered customers for sewage, wastewater, we have about 230 people still getting septic service in our community. So thank you for the information. It can be valuable for our area as well. It would be in order at this time for the Executive Committee to entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved to adopt Resolution 17-18. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 17-18. Does the proponent of the resolution wish to speak in favor of it? Hearing none, does someone wish to speak in opposition? Hearing none, the vote will be now taken. As many as in favor of the adoption of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
As many opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the report from the Environmental Management Policy Committee. It was recommended for action on Resolution 17-19 in support of the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore and Indiana Dunes State Park to a letter of support designating them as a dark sky park by the International Dark Sky Association. Beverly Shores is the 7th international community, dark sky international community, and we've written a letter of support for this, and this is recommended by the EMPC to this body for their support for their efforts to be recognized that way.
Move the approval.
It's been moved to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution from members of the Executive Committee. Does the proponents of the resolution wish to speak in favor of it?
Yes.
Please.
I think this is an excellent initiative and well needed. Thank you.
Very well. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition? Hearing none, as many as in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
As many as opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The resolution is adopted.
And that concludes my report from the Environmental Management Policy Committee. We meet again on the first Thursday of each month at 9 a.m. in this room. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. It's now in order for us to take up and receive the reports from the Technical Planning Committee. Kevin Brietzke serves as its chair. Mr. Brietzke, Commissioner Brietzke, excuse me. Both are correct. I can use both appellations, both Mr. and Commissioner.
The Technical Planning Committee met on September 12th and heard two presentations. The staff presented the safe and secure transportation goal of the 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan. Afterward, Lindsay Quist from INDOT gave an update on INDOT's next level plan. There are two actions for consideration today. The first is Resolution 1720, The second amendment to fiscal year 2018-2021 Transportation Improvement Plan as found on pages 41 to 45 in your packet. Gary Evers will explain this action.
Thank you, Kevin. Amendment 2 deals with local public agency projects, changes to those projects throughout the region. Town of Schererville is adding some preliminary engineering and railroad costs to their Pensy Greenway Trail project. They're removing that money from the construction phase of the project. Hobart is delaying construction of a project from US 6 on County Line Road to Cleveland Avenue, bumping that out a year due to some NEPA issues. Lake County is delaying a phase of 45th Avenue reconstruction from 2019 into 2021. We have a new project sponsored by Lake County Highway Department. This is a substitution. They're eliminating 2 other projects and funding this one. This is a signal project at 101st Avenue and Sheffield, very close to the Illinois-Indiana border. A new project in the city of Gary. This is actually the remnants of a project funded many years ago, a trail project connecting Polk Street and Roosevelt, just north of US 1220. Another addition of a phase. This is an advancement of a project from 2022 into 2019 for the city of Gary. This is the final leg of Airport Road, running from the new overpass to Klein Avenue. Addition of a right-of-way phase for a project in Cedar Lake, a roundabout construction at Lakeshore Drive and Klein Avenue, some additional money for Crown Point for their 125th Avenue Safety Improvement Project. City of Portage is receiving some additional funding for its construction project on Central Avenue from Hamstrom Road to the Toll Road, and adding a environmental mitigation phase to that as well. Lake County was awarded some state bridge money last year, and we are adding this project to the tip here. It's bridge number 65, 125th Ave over West Creek, near the Indiana-Illinois line. We're correcting an error in funding for Valparaiso's trail project along US 30 from Hayes Leonard Road to Washington Street. Adding some right-of-way to Valpo's Silhavy Road, reconstruction avenue from Evans Ave to LaPorte Ave. Advancing their Ransom Road safety improvement project from 2021 into 2019. And the balance are LaPorte County projects, adding some funding to a 88 curb ramp and sidewalk project in Hanna and Rolling Prairie, putting some money toward a wayfinding signage project at Kingsbury Industrial Park, 3 City of LaPorte projects, adding PE funding for a sign inventory, looking at all signs within the city of LaPorte, and 2 pavement management, pavement preservation projects on Michigan Ave and Madison Ave in downtown LaPorte. And finally, we're deleting 1 Lake County project, as I mentioned earlier, as part of the substitution earlier. These projects all come out of the various TROC committees, the Transportation Resource Oversight Committees, were recommended for funding or for the changes that we're making here. They were exposed to a public comment period of 7 days, and were also submitted to the Indiana Consultation Group for Air Quality, and were cleared by that group last week. So we are asking for your approval for the amendment of these projects into the TIP.
Motion to approve Resolution 17-20.
It's been moved to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded from the Executive Committee to approve Resolution 1720, which will make Amendment 2 to our current Transportation Improvement Plan. The members who have moved it wish to speak in favor of the resolution. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition? Hearing none. As many as in favor of adoption of the resolution, say aye. Aye. As many opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you. The next action is on Resolution 1721, the third amendment to fiscal year 2018-2021 Transportation Improvement Program, as found on pages 46 to 64. We went from 3 pages of amendment to 16 pages, which I think is a record for our agency. However, a lot of these projects, as Gary will explain, are maintenance, relining, and such. Gary Evers will explain this action.
Thank you. Yes, this is what I've termed the mother of all amendments. Thanks to the generosity of the General Assembly in establishing NDOT's Next Level program, we are seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of what money is coming in for highway improvements through NDOT. Haven't totaled the dollars up here yet. And maybe you have something that you can report, Mr. Powers, but we're seeing a lot of preliminary engineering and right-of-way. We are not adding the construction activities yet on a lot of these, so any total would just not be reflective of the massive amount of money that is actually coming into this region for state highways. 136 different projects at this point in time. Multiple phases on each, everything from pipelining, in other words, lining the inside of culverts, drainage improvements, pavement rehabilitation, pavement preventive maintenance, bridge decks, a few bridges here and there. Did I miss anything? Is that, yeah, you name it, it's in here. And we're very grateful for the investment. I mean, this is a terrific thing. I think I've been waiting for 20 years for the boat to come in, and I think it finally did.
They heard you were retiring.
So this is exciting stuff. This is positively exciting stuff. The neatest thing I've seen come along in a long time. So like everything, the other amendments, this did go through public comment with no comments received, and went through the ICG group for air quality conformity, and was cleared last week. So again, and my hat is off to the General Assembly and to NDOT for coming up with some neat stuff here. I look forward in my retirement to smooth pavements ahead. So I'm asking for the approval of this amendment.
The Technical Planning Committee recommends adoption of Resolution 1721.
I'm moved to adopt.
The chair hears that there's a great spirit to consider this matter favorably. Having heard the motion in the second, as many as does the people who've made the motion wish to speak in favor? Now I'll recognize Mr. Carney.
I would just like to comment on one of these. At the intersection of 231 and Klein Avenue, there's going to be a roundabout in here with this after it's passed. And then at the other end of Klein Avenue in Cedar Lake, we'll have a roundabout there on Lakeshore Drive at Klein Avenue. So 2 roundabouts right there on Klein Avenue.
We should probably have an Emerson Lake Palmer song. Is it so popular now? Aren't you impressed I knew that cultural reference? We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other comments in favor? Commissioner Schaefer?
The bridge project for NDOT for the section of I-80-94 between the Indiana-Illinois state line and Calumet Avenue. It's identified here as being in Hammond. That section is actually in Munster. However, if there's a public outcry because NDOT has blocked the project, then that section is in Hammond.
I understand. We have a similar policy in Highland for that kind of thing as well. We beg your pardon, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, for the future, when we have projects like this, and NDOT has 50 or 60 things listed, can we put the location down I mean, I do know where most of these are located, and some of them are in there, and then some of them say like, hold on.
I completely,
Yeah, just so we can look through and say, like, Munster, Hammond, it would be a lot easier.
for the sponsor, I take your point. The chair
A lot of them
cannot
do have
order it.
that, but.
The chair cannot order that, but the request has been made. We hope the TPC and the staff will hear that request and hopefully be able to honor it in the future. That's just a request. We cannot order it at this level unless there's a motion. We really didn't want to go to that level. I can hear that. We have a motion pending. Is there any other talk in favor?
Yes.
Does anyone? Yes.
Only to signal out Ed Soliday and thank him as part of the General Assembly to help make this happen. So,
We commend you again, Representative Soliday. Thank you for your leadership on this. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition after all of that? I dare you. Very well. The chair did sort of breach conventional protocol, so we beg your pardon for that. It would be in order now for the roll call, so as many as in favor of this, please vote aye.
aye.
As many opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the motion passes, the resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank the committee. Does the committee have anything further for us? It does not? Then we will now recognize the Honorable Rick Powers, who served our country in several ways and continues to serve now as Deputy Commissioner of the LaPorte District of the Indiana Department of Transportation. Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I really, based on what I've heard over and over again, would almost yield the balance of my time to Representative Soliday because he actually exhibited more courage than any of us getting this done. Not just next level, not just the funding, but putting NDOT in the CTEP to do a lot of homework, quite frankly, because some of the bill is for us to find ways to find revenue. And so some of this work is still to be determined, and some of this work you're seeing programmed. Yet I really do almost want to say, Representative, do you want to speak to this? And because this is awesome. It's a lot of work for us, and I'm very pleased. Community Crossings, as you know, the announcement was just made, was actually, again, another nod to the representative. It's just a good time to be in Indiana and involved with infrastructure. I mean, now we all know the cones and barrels are to come, the express lanes and all the things that are already here are only going to be added to, but you're also going to see an added focus on what you just saw. NDOT is now taking on more of a, I guess, a detailed asset management plan, if you will. You heard a lot about pipelinings, bridge maintenance, things like that that have historically we've tried to get by. We're now programming those things. They're now coming and you're going to see them programmed in the future and a lot more 16-page reports with funding available to do it and then execute it. And it just wouldn't have happened without the representatives, again, courage. And I know we all know what we're talking about. I mean, this comes with a cost, I think a minimal cost, and one that we all are willing to pay to get what we're getting out of this. So again, I would say as somebody working in an agency that is directly being impacted through a great deal of work that we're going to have to do to deliver this, but also the positive outcomes, I could not say thanks more, I think, than anyone to the representative for what he's done. So do you want to say anything, Representative, before I kind of give a report on where we are?
Just there this time were more requests for community crossings, more dollar requests, almost twice as many as the amount of money we had. So I would just caution all of you that they have to cut the squad somehow. So it's a one-page application, and the folks who did not get grants erred in how they filled out their form. Some didn't sign them, various things, but I was pretty adamant that it would be a one-page application. We do have a little problem. I had the opportunity to meet with the 16 plus since the last meeting. And one of the things that has come out is after the project's approved and the request for money comes, some of the other agencies are then making big requests for 10 or 11 pages. So on my little follow-up list is to meet with the governor and his chief of staff. And the problem is some of these folks that are requesting all kinds of paper don't work for the governor. I know none of you have ever dealt with the I was elected, I don't work for you scenario. But again, we know about it. if we can't fix it in a constructive, collaborative way, there are other ways. So I think bear with us through this year. We're plowing new ground, but that's one of the things we're trying to do is make the bureaucracy simpler and commend the commissioner and INDOT for, we did give them a plateful. And some of you are impatient for some other things to happen, but we can only do so much. There's a list of priorities. The Federal Exchange Program will be coming shortly. And I will caution you again also, you've heard me say this, I'll say it again, for the 100th time, I hate cloud-based infrastructure. So Purdue has given us an economist, another independent economist, 2 engineers, and they are creating a system to allocate projects based upon congestion, safety, and economic contribution. And a number is, they will assign a value. Everybody's project is economic development, right? I've never seen one that wasn't. So now there'll be a number assigned to it. And so instead of arguing, it's never happened in Northwest Indiana that Indianapolis loves somebody else best. We can argue about the inputs in the machine, not about personalities and politics.
Thank you, Representative. And I will outline just a few numbers. I mean, last year I was pretty proud of the town of Onward, which is, if you need to go there, because last year they were awarded, and I think we were a little concerned this year with the amount of work that had been done and some of what happened last year. But those that didn't submit community crossings, that I think the representative in a previous meeting said, don't leave money on the table. This is just too good of a program. We didn't have that problem this year. And I knew that last year would be the best advertisement for this year, hence some of, I guess, the projects that didn't make it. Last year, everybody made it, because quite frankly, I think there was skepticism. There were asset management plans. There were a lot of things that had to happen last year. This year, that wasn't a problem. So I think the record holder this year was a population 81. Montport, Harrison County was awarded, which is, you figure somebody sat down at a kitchen table and did some work. I think we had somebody do that here. Somebody at Montport did the same thing, I'm guessing, to get that done. But 85 total communities at 33.2 million, and then statewide 150 million. So again, a one-page application, and if we could take the entire infrastructure program to that level, I'd be really happy. Because to get to the representative's point, we are trying to knock down walls and bureaucracy and move the money and the infrastructure forward. That's why we move these plans forward. So I think I'll close with that. Beyond that, we are moving forward to maintenance, trying to refresh paint, get ready for winter, getting fleet ready. Hopefully we will have the new sub open in Plymouth soon. We're at punch list on that now. I want to take delivery of salt and start operating on there soon. And beyond that, unless you have questions, I think I can back away.
Other questions? Robert?
2 things. First, I'll announce that Cedar Lake got their first award of $690,000.
Wow.
Second thing, in previous years, I think Bob Alderman would announce that he's in need of new people to drive vehicles and stuff.
No, that's not just Bob. I say it every year too. Okay. And I will say it again since you brought it up. If you know people that have or want a CDL and are looking for seasonal employment, NDOT is hiring. In fact, you'll probably start seeing it on our trucks. We're putting advertising for employment on the back of our trucks and stenciling it on. So yes, entry-level employment at NDOT and training and the opportunities are usually always available. In this region, with the economy improving the way it is, we are a training bed for that type of employment. So we encourage it. I'm not complaining about it. Just if you know people or if you want to send them to our appointment site, please do. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're going to keep this under this report. Representative Soliday, you
Just 2 things that involve the state. A bipartisan group of legislators met with NERC a week or so ago to talk about the emissions testing program for Northwest Indiana, where we got some really good input. But at the hearing, there was a hearing of the Infrastructure Committee, and I think we got real clarity on where we're at, and I thought it would be good to share with you all, because there is a lot of confusion. But If you really want to know about it, you can see the tapes of that hearing. But number one, while there is a priority list or a list of things you can do to comply with clean air, we are doing all but about one. And I was stunned to hear from the environmental people that we have some of the cleanest, if not the cleanest air in Porter and Lake County of the entire Midwest. That's the good news. The bad news is that we cannot get out from under the emissions testing piece. Some folks have suggested that maybe we could substitute something else. Well, businesses that try to come to Hammond and Gary and so forth, many times when they see what they have to do to comply with environmental standards, they go somewhere else, and they don't have to go very many counties away. So we don't want to heap more stuff that drives jobs away. So I asked the IDEM people and EPA folks, I said, so you're telling me that if we have air cleaner than a confessional booth in Antarctica, we still have to do environmental emissions testing? And they said yes. There is only one way out. And remember who pays. If you have a modern car, you go in, you plug in, and you're out of there in probably 10 minutes. It's the poor, the elderly, who then the ridiculousness of the system is you go in, you don't pass, you go have $400 worth of work done, you go back, and in the end they say, okay, you're never going to pass, go in peace, we'll see you in 2 years. But they're down $400, and that's the poor and the elderly. So we only have one monitoring station in the whole system that fails, and that's up in Wisconsin, yet we are punished for it. So I think what you will see, and I'm not driving the train on this, I just happen to have the keys to some doors, the delegation will probably send a letter to our congressional representatives asking that Lake and Porter County become their own environmental district, so that we are not drug into programs by the behavior of Chicago and Wisconsin. So if you have thoughts about that, I'm glad to listen. Charlie Brown, Rick Niemeyer, Senator Mervan are all involved. Feel free to tell them if you don't like that idea, but that train is moving. So for your understanding, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I know far more than I ever wanted to about that topic. The second one is, as we're moving along with infrastructure funding and so forth, we've had a series of stakeholder meetings. There are more to come on autonomous vehicles. And one of the things the state is doing, and sort of our mantra is, first, we're protect the safety of Hoosiers, and second, as we have this new influx of money, we are building roads for the 21st century, not for the 20th century. So in a number of our projects, we're putting conduit in beside the road, which we will probably lease to people who want to put fiber or whatever into that. We don't like to, if you don't know, we don't like to grant easements on interstates because then we don't know where they put their stuff, and then we cut it, and then we have to. So if we own it, we know where it is. So those meetings are continuing. We have what I call the Goobers, that's the Google Uber crowd, and they say by 2005, none of us will own a car, 5 companies will own them all, and we will just dial up on our cell phone and a box will show up, and we'll put the kids and the dog in and send them to grandma's house. The researchers at the University of Michigan, Ohio State, and Carnegie Mellon say that isn't going to happen. Beyond what we need to do just to fix our roads nationally, that's another $1 trillion in infrastructure investment. I don't know where that money's coming from. So one is the money. 2 is the complexity of a vehicle that will go anywhere. So Toyota and some other manufacturers say, you know, the marketplace is going to have a lot to say. And so in the SAE model of 0 through 5 rating of autonomous vehicles, it's probably going to plateau at 3. next year, for example, I'm not selling Toyota, I don't drive them, but any level of Toyota, from the poorest to the richest, any level of Toyota will have 70% of the safety features on board. Now, the vehicle-to-vehicle communication is still being debated. How does it affect you all? Telecommunications industry wants to tell you that 5G, that means a pole every 100 feet everywhere, is essential. The researchers say 5G, even though it's much faster, will be too slow to be effective in a blind intersection vehicle-to-vehicle communication. They're actually testing with the SC and some other things. So that vehicle-to-vehicle stuff is still pretty far out there, but vehicle-to-infrastructure is something that is being discussed. INDOT is putting a chip in their 5-year cycle of retiming their lights and so forth. They're putting a chip in that the software or the hardware in some GM products and some other products will recognize whether the light is red, yellow, or green and act appropriately. And the complexity of these things, for example, it can see right now whether the light is red. The only problem is if the wind is blowing, it interprets it as a caution. Not a good thing if you're counting on it to auto stop. So it's coming. The argument is about the timelines. We want to be prepared. There will probably be legislation this year. But just for all of you, 75% of the people in America in polling are asking why we need this. And part of it is the cost. It is extremely expensive. The researchers say the early versions for a fully compliant level 4 will cost between $20,000 and $50,000 per vehicle, in addition to the cost of the vehicle. So I know not a number of you want to dash out and get on that list. Tesla, which we did legislation about last year, is at 2.2. So that's probably the most advanced car out there. So when you hear all of this stuff, yes, we're working on it. The point of telling you is that there are things you can do as you're spending this infrastructure money to build infrastructure for the 21st century, not just build for what you did in the past. Communication being one, striping and signage being others.
And are there any questions for the representative?
I have something, I don't know if it pertains to that, but I read in the paper that the Coca-Cola facility here in Portage is going to move a lot of their jobs to Alsip, Illinois, which I think is a negative. I think we're better equipped to handle businesses here in the state of Indiana instead of Illinois. Does anybody here have any idea why they're moving those jobs to Alsip?
I read what you did in the paper, and that's as much as I know.
Probably clearing the area so you can get the other big contract that Gary is bidding on. Or Mayor McDermott,
I'm going to treat that as other business. Did anybody else have other business they wanted to bring before the body on the executive committee? There is none. So now we're at the moment for public comment. Pursuant to our policy, we do have our sign-in sheet for this meeting. We have a letter from Kim Irwin, who's Executive Director of Health by Design. We also have Teresa Torres, who I see here, of Maryville, who wants to talk about the topic of general transit. And I should have said that the Kim Irwin letter deals with transit. And Mr. Wright, David Wright, is here representing the Gary Community Transportation Corporation, and he also wishes to speak on general transit. If you'll forbear me before I recognize them, we do have this letter. It would be customary and usual parliamentary practice for this letter to be read by the secretary. I have asked the executive director and Ms. Thorne to make sure everybody had a copy of the letter, so you have it. Copies can be made available to the public if they wish to have it. If there is no objection, I'm going to ask that this letter be received as part of the record. Ms. Irwin writes basically advocating for more effort on regional transit, an effort that I think that we have a great deal of empathy and sympathy for. although we need to commit more energy to that. If there is no objection, I'm going to ask then that this be placed in the record to be included as part of the public comment. It can be scanned in now. The technology doesn't make this difficult. But that cannot be done without permission of the commission. But rather than have a vote, if there's no objection, I'm going to order it as general consent and will also forego the reading out loud. There is no objection, the chair orders that to be part of the record. Nobody objected, yes? Good. Then let us move forward. And I understand Ms. Torres is next on the list. Ms. Torres, shall I recognize you or Mr. Wright? I know you're kind of coordinating your comments today. Mr. Wright.
First of all, thank you very much for providing us the opportunity to speak. Kim Irwin's letter was kind of consistent with what we're going to talk about, and that is the topic of local transportation funding, local public transit funding. I'd like to talk about two subjects as it relates to that. First is the Broadway Metro Express, which, first of all, I want to thank Indiana Department of Transportation. They have gotten into a role when it comes to public transportation support that I don't think they anticipated getting into a couple of years ago, and they've done a yeoman's job. They're just one of the partners that are involved in that transportation expansion. Hopefully, in October, we'll be announcing an actual launch date for the rapid bus service. I wanted to thank on record NDOT, plus the other funding partners, the federal government, obviously, the city of Gary, the Gary Stormwater Management District, which is helping pay for bus shelters in Glen Park, the town of Maryville, which said, hey, we're not just going to pay for shelters, we're going to pay for shuttle service, the Legacy Foundation, which is assisting in the branding and artwork, IUN and Ivy Tech also assisted in construction of a bus shelter right outside of their new building. So all of those agencies put some skin in the game when it came to the impending Broadway Metro Express, which segs into again, I'll repeat for you, there's a need to maintain lakeshore service in the Hammond, Munster, Highland area by coming up with a similar partnership. I wanted to thank NERC. Again, this morning you reiterated NERC's support in trying to create the task force that will talk about that. That task force includes 3 communities involved: the city of Gary, the town of Maryville, Lake County Council, which has gotten more involved in that discussion as time has gone on. However, we are still technically on the hook for suspending lakeshore service totally in Hammond, Munster, and Highland starting in December, and having the lakeshore connection, which connects Gary, Hammond, and Chicago, in December. And as part of that, we're going to have to at least start to notify our customers on that suspension of service if we don't come up with a local funding mechanism. So we set a meeting. It's being co-hosted by the South Shore Transit Alliance, and it's going to be at the Hammond Public Library on October 4th at 12:30. Staff will be there to discuss the impacts of the suspension of service and the reduction of service of the Lakeshore Connection. We will give riders and residents an opportunity to ask any questions of us, of anyone else who's there. Kim Irwin of the Indiana Citizens Alliance for Transit, she will be there to provide a state perspective on that, as well as Teresa Torres of Everybody Counts. I want to end by highlighting, even though it's in the record, I want to highlight a couple of excerpts from Kim Irwin's letter. The evidence is clear. Transit benefits communities and the people who live and visit them. As transit service increases, the overall transportation network becomes safer, total crashes are reduced. Transit provides access to people of all ages, abilities, and income levels, and also provides transit choice for those who don't want to drive their car. Whether that means access to medical or healthy food, access to school or work, improved mobility through transit service means improved quality of life. The collaborative energy and approach that has been demonstrated for the Broadway Metro Express, as I mentioned, and the South Shore expansion projects must be harnessed to maintain paratransit and fixed route service in other communities. And local investment in transit is critical, both by providing direct financial support but also by maximizing available federal and state funding as leverage. So I'm really, really hoping that the task force that NERC is spearheading proves fruitful. We're still preparing for the worst, but I'm confident that a collaboration between GPTC, ICAT, and NERC can find a solution to the issue. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Whose responsibility is it to provide for busing across the county, in your opinion?
I think it's collaborative.
What does that mean?
Well,
I mean, I have people are coming to Hammond and saying it's your responsibility, but I don't really agree with that. I think it's a regional responsibility.
I do think it's a regional responsibility.
Then why are you only going after certain communities?
Pardon?
And why are you only coming after certain communities?
We're not. What we're requesting is for the communities that are most directly involved in this particular.
So if I live in Griffith, I don't have any responsibility towards people that use buses in other communities?
That's not for me to say, but I mean, I think it's possible. I think it would be, the best case scenario would be a regional funding mechanism.
Me too.
Right, but it's difficult. We haven't realized that yet. So what we did with the Broadway Metro Express, and it wasn't our idea, it was actually the town of Maryville's, was to create a funding mechanism for a portion of that service that they would help pay for. And absent another mechanism, which again, I think we both agree is the best case scenario, what I like to call, what I called before, the Maryville model, is another way of doing it. Now, when we sit down with this...
In your perfect world, who should pay for busing?
My perfect world?
Yeah.
The federal government.
But the local match needs to be made by somebody local, right?
Yes.
So do you think it should be?
In a perfect world, it would be a regional, I think it would be a regional body.
Like the county?
That's not for me to say. I would say a regional body.
But I think you should have a plan, though. I mean, you come in here, and I feel like I'm sort of being attacked, like, well, Hammond's not participating. Okay, but I believe philosophically, it's not a Hammond problem. I think it's a regional problem, and it's being ignored by the region. So if I give you a Band-Aid, and you put the Band-Aid on, does that really help the problem?
I agree, and that's why we went to the Regional Planning Commission and requested their assistance as a regional agency.
It's a regional problem.
And working on that.
It's a regional problem, and it is a problem, and it's a regional problem. It's not a Hammond problem. It's not a Gary problem. It's not a Maryville problem. It's a regional problem. So if I move to St. John, do I get to like forget about the poor people, or are we a region? We agree on a lot of things, but I don't really agree with your tactics, okay?
I thank the commissioner and I thank Mr. Wright. Just a reminder, those of you who, and the mayor has consented to try to participate in this, I expect that will be the sentiment that you'll hear him share at the meeting. However, I do want to encourage everybody that got an email from Mr. Winters, one of the planners with NERC. There's a doodle poll that's very easy to go on. You got an email from him? Just click on that, because we had to cancel our first attempt at a meeting simply because we just didn't have enough people who could go. So our hope is that we can get a common meeting for all based on that doodle poll. So I'm hopeful that this can happen, and I agree with the mayor, and actually Mr. Wright, I hear him saying the same thing. It is a regional matter. So even if this gives you a stopgap repair, it's not going to be sustainable probably, but NERC wants to be a convener because we recognize that we have to exercise some leadership in regional issues. We're just not as equipped to provide funding for that, but it also kind of spotlights an area where maybe our legislative committee needs to look at some advocacy issues for us with regard to a more sustainable and resilient solution to that.
If we could use the Lakeshore service and maintaining it as the entry into a more permanent conversation, I think that would be the best case. That doesn't just solve the short-term problem, but creates a long-term solution.
And presently, I believe there's legislation that would allow a food and beverage tax to be adopted to go to this, but there's a lot of resistance to it, and the adoption method is complicated. Just for Lake County, if I'm not mistaken. Am I remembering that? That law has not sunset, has it not? Okay. But I know that the executive director of our Convention and Visitors Authority is unhappy with that approach. Thank you, Mr. Wright. I want to be sensitive to our time constraints. Ms. Torres? Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I need to remove this so it doesn't do feedback. I'm the director of Everybody Counts, which is funded by the Department of Health and Human Services. Before I make the comments I hope to make, I would be remiss on behalf of the people I serve if I didn't point out, Mr. Mayor, that St. John didn't have a bus service that was given away. So since we get calls daily from residents of your community, Whiting and other areas north, I would say, in my opinion, it is the responsibility of the community in which these residents live to ensure in some fashion, whether it's through direct funding or efforts to secure funding from another source, that their needs are met. For more than 30 years, our agency's legislated responsibilities under federal law have included representing and advocating on behalf of people with disabilities, which is currently about 20% of the population. Everybody Counts has been recognized for its outstanding systemic advocacy by, for example, Indiana University, and just a few months ago, the Indiana Citizens Alliance for Transportation, ICAT. But unfortunately, your director has said that our advocacy efforts amount to nothing more than name-calling, being disrespectful and disruptive, and bullying. Now, to me, bullying can be well defined by a room full of officials such as yourself, calling in a number of armed policemen to intimidate a small group of senior citizens on walkers. Some of you were not here for that interesting day. But in any case, your director has said that he would never work with our federally funded agency until we learn to advocate in a way that he found acceptable. Now, what many do not understand is the Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights act. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, when people respond to a demand for civil rights with weight, it most often means never. Perhaps you do not know that Northwest Indiana's disability community has waited for nearly 40 decades before the ADA was passed, all the way back to Norm Tufford's tenure, through Jim Ranfranz and John Swanson. I wanted to say bye to Gary today. We've worked with Gary for many years. You've had great folks working here through the years. But we have asked NERC to take the role over and again that it absolutely should play in improving the degree to which people with disabilities throughout Northwest Indiana can fully participate in their communities. There's just so much you can do with respect to infrastructure, with respect to crosswalks. But when you evaluate your neighborhood, the issue of access isn't even included in one of the checklists. Unfortunately, not even a difficult federal class action lawsuit made any significant difference. Now, other adversaries in that legal action, for example, Gary Public Transit and East Chicago Transit, have since become allies and trusted colleagues, as has the North Township trustee. Together we have established the South Shore Transit Alliance, and together we have gone a long way toward establishing the kind of respectful collaboration which has long been missing in the public transportation arena. I heard your comments about the food and beverage tax and about Spiro Batistatos' well-known opposition to that tax. What you may not know is that Mr. Batistatos has clearly articulated that his position would change significantly and that he would be willing to consider a portion of those funds being allocated for public transportation if others would also show the same interest and support. Because you see, he is willing to work with us. But your director says nobody can work with us. Now, we've left you alone for quite a while now. We haven't been here in about a year. We had hoped that during that time, you would finally discuss community interpretation and implementation of the ADA, but you haven't. We had hoped that you would actually follow your public participation plan, but you haven't. That was something required by the consent decree. But even more disappointing is the fact that despite the gaps in services which were created by the RBA's demise, NERC until today We have heard absolutely nothing about any meaningful dialogue about improving and expanding the kinds of public transit services which can literally mean the difference, not just between working and being employed, not just between being locked in your house and being able to be part of the community, but oftentimes quite literally between life and death for the people that we serve. The same thing applies to the RDA. We certainly hope that there is no personal bias against our agency and against me personally playing any part in that failure. I think that you need to understand that part of your role as planners is to recognize this part of the community. This is not a request, this is not a favor. We're not going to apologize. We have a great deal to offer, but we will not apologize for what we've had to say or do on behalf of those who are counting on us, particularly the residents of North Lake County. But they are right now counting on you to get past any bruised feelings about the RDA or anything else and start taking an active role to ensure that these people, these residents, your neighbors, your family, your co-workers, to the kind of public transit services that they so desperately need, because access is a civil right. Mr. Soliday, I wish I'd written it down more quickly. I couldn't. But he said if we can't do it in a collaborative way, there are other ways. When I share that message, it's called a threat. I call it a commitment. Please get active, stop passing the buck, and recognize that there are citizens out there waiting for you to take action, not just say things. Thank you.
Doris, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and we will take them to heart. I was sincere about possibly talking to I will talk to the legislative committee. The chair of that committee is now serving all the citizens of Indiana with the governor as a secretary for a newly established position. But I will make work of getting them reconstituted and invite them to consider if there's some advocacy we can do with regard to giving us some statutory construct. I am reminded by Representative Soliday that we still have a regional bus authority statute, and I do know that at the time of its attempt to try to operate, there was support by the city of Hammond to allow those assets to be assumed by it, and I think there was some financial support in the hopes that there could be the seed that would sprout into an operational RBA, but for a variety of reasons, that just didn't get to go further. But
we're glad that it did not go further, but the people still have need.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
Thank you. I wanted to respond about Ty Warner, who I think is one of the more professional and honest and nicest people I've ever worked with. In NERC, right? I mean, I've been here with Mr. Swanson, I also consider very highly, but the person that was just described is not the person I've known for the past 2 years. I tell you, Ty and I don't talk every day. I don't even know if we have each other's cell phone numbers, but I tell you, Ty is a great guy. He's very professional. He's honest as the day is long. I'd be really shocked if I ever heard any of the things that I've heard described just a second ago.
I'll send you the letter.
Your time is done, thank you.
Okay.
Come out of his mouth. So I just want to go on record and say that. And like I said, Ty doesn't pay me anything. Ty and I don't even have his cell phone numbers. But that guy's super professional, super honest, and super nice. So I don't know where this comes from. So I just wanted to say that in Ty's defense.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We're now at the moment of announcements or good of the order. The chair wishes to share with you, I'll be representing you as one of the 2 people welcoming professionals to the annual Metropolitan Planning Organization Conference in Michigan City. Mayor Muir, of course, will be welcoming as the mayor of the host city, and I've been invited and I'm excited about it. I hope that they don't mind taking 20 minutes to hear I'm kidding. I am going to offer some remarks I hope that will be appropriate for the audience of professional planners, and I'm proud to do that on behalf of the body. Is there anyone else who has announcements? Mr. Carnahan?
I talked enough.
I went right to you in the hopes. I thought for sure. Very well. Does anyone else have an announcement they want to share for the good of the order? Hearing none then, we have no more business on the agenda. Adjournment being the last matter, the chair declares us adjourned.